and welcome to 9 to 42, the podcast from the team at the Guitar Show UK. Join us for interviews, updates and chat with artists, influencers and those that manufacture the gear that we love. Hello and welcome to 9 to 42, the podcast from the guys at the Guitar Show UK. I am sat, as always, looking at my good friend Jace Hunt on screen. Jace, how the devil are you?
I'm really good, Ant. I've had a good week and now it's the weekend, so what more could you want?
Well, I've put my Christmas lights up today. In fact, you know that because it ended up taking longer than I thought. So we were going to record at 4 and actually we're recording later, mainly because of my Christmas lights. But I've been out for a walk and come back and the timer had kicked in, so they were on and they looked fantastic.
Oh, well, my wife wants to see them.
Your wife wants to see that? I'll send you a picture.
Okay.
I'll send you a picture over. I did go. I was out walking, and I've seen a lot of Christmas lights up, but I was out walking today, and I did a double take because I looked down a close, and there was this house that was every piece of brickwork was covered, and it was a good side house. It was four bedroom house, and every piece of brick. And I just did that thing where I kind of went, "Oh, for fuck's sake!" And I didn't realise how loud I'd said it because I was listening to a podcast as I was walking. So, Jesus. But it was that thing that kind of stopped you in its tracks.
We've got a house round the corner from us. And it's been on TV quite a few times because it has the most Christmas lights anywhere. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And they'd actually stopped 2 years ago. But they've brought it back for these COVID times.
These COVID times. Oh, bless them. Bless them. So I've done that. So we've got the second bit of Bruce Dickinson today, haven't we?
Yeah, it's our Brucey bonus.
It's our Brucey bonus. You wanted to use that gag, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
You've been desperate to use that gag. So it's our Brucey bonus, which reminds me something completely random. So, did I tell you that I've started getting involved with the Hogarth family quiz?
Yes, you did mention it.
Right, okay. So I do a podcast with a guy called Steve Hogarth, who's Marillion's lead singer, and for whatever reason, they do a quiz. Every Sunday night, they have a family quiz, and they do it on Zoom, and I got invited along, and I went to this Zoom quiz, and it was very nice. And then they had a special event the week after that I did, which was last Saturday, whereby somebody did play your cards right. So we did a virtual game of play your cards right, and somebody had built like the board with the 2 lines of cards. And if you've got to be of an age to remember play your cards right, but it was Bruce that did it. I think he did it originally, didn't it?
I think he did.
I think somebody else did it as well. I mean, Les Dennis might have done it as well, but I think Bruce did it originally. And it's a relatively simple game. You answer a question and you've got 5 cards and you play higher or lower. It's nothing particularly... but, this thing went on for hours. Whoever'd organised the whole thing and organised the structure, and we're 4 hours in and people are just losing the will to live. It was fantastic and it was funny, but people were just dropping as we went along. But they used all the proper questions. So they'd gone online and got the questions. And if you won't remember, but it was we asked 100 plasterers a question, or we asked 100 hairdressers if they preferred da-da-da-da-da, and you had to guess what it was. So it was completely random. So I don't know why I even started mentioning that.
I don't even know where you'd find 100 plasterers. I can never find one when I need one.
That's a very fair point. Anyway, Brucey bonus. So yeah, we're back with Bruce, aren't we? So, which is the second part of the conversation that we recorded about a week ago, and I believe when we start talking to him, I think you were just in the process of asking him about his TED Talk.
Yeah, I watched it the night before we'd spoken to him. It was just fascinating as I work in music education, and it's not so much about music education, it's about education in general and how he sees it changing over the next decade or so. I'm not sure that I completely agree with some of it, but I don't disagree with some of it either. I think some of it is quite a logical extension. I mean, we work in we live in a world now that's a very on-demand world, and why can't education be like that? And you look at the resources now for kids learning to play guitar, and it's all YouTube and stuff, and that stuff didn't exist when we started to play.
No. Well, it goes to what we talked about a little bit last week. He takes a real interest in those things, and he's a very considered and proactive thinker, as you will hear as we carry on. But there's some other stuff in here. There's some guitar stuff in here. There's some nice bits. We get onto Gibsons and Grecos and all manner of alternatives and bits about old Squires and what have you. So it's a bit of a ramble through that starts with education and finishes with more guitar-y based topics. So I will leave you in the hands of Jason asking a question to Bruce about his TED Talk.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because I last night I watched your TED Talk that you did in March. It must have been literally just before lockdown.
Well, I filmed it in October, so there's hint of this coming.
And it was just really interesting, because someone who works for BIM now, which is just like a weird situation to find ourselves in. You were talking about where education goes, and you, I've had to, I'm a course leader at BIM, so I've had to get my students and my tutors through this whole moving online, and we had to move online. We did the end of term gig on the Thursday night. The Friday we were shut because a member of staff had suspected COVID, so we were having a deep clean, and on the Monday we just didn't reopen again. It moved that quick, and we'd had to, we started with Teams, and then we moved to Skype, or and then we ended up on Zoom, and it was just kind of like we'd got no planning in place for this because we'd never had to do it. We were very much to deliver it in the classroom, and you in your TED Talk you talk. I found it really, really interesting as someone that's in it like you, where you were saying you all of the products that you buy are now delivered to you when you want them, whether it be
and personalised.
So
in that talk I say, going to a particular building at a particular university is like driving to Hull to watch somebody else's Netflix. Learning takes place, for me, learning took place in my life, so I need to bring that into a qualification I'm doing. So there's real world learning. There is a place for classroom learning. It's still very important, but it's got to be backed up with the hybrid thing of it's got to be online as well. So if you go on tour, you can still finish your master's or your degree. And we really believed in that, but didn't expect it to be tested in these sort of extreme circumstances. But for a startup, the thing that you lose, it's things like your physical events, like your UCAS events or your open days, stuff like that. But you can. The time at the moment is all about. It's going to suit innovation. It's going to be very hard on people who come against an obstacle and stop. You've got to be able to go over the top, round the side, or underneath. But that's why it's so amazing for young musicians, because a lot of people my age, they are moaning on and going on about how brilliant it used to be in the 90s, especially in the live sector. And I appreciate how tough it is right out there for now. But there's a different dialogue with younger people who are like, where's the opportunity? What can we do? And it's going to be exactly like 2005 with the music industry. Just moves off and young people just take it somewhere else, So it's a very exciting time. My son's a professional DJ. He's 22 and a producer as well. And I'm very happy for him to be a professional musician right now. Although his gigs have all stopped through COVID, there's more opportunity I can see on the horizon than there would have been in 88, 89. Because people forget, they look back with rose-tinted spectacles, but they forget that how few people were involved in that party. And you might have been brilliant, but you had to get past a gatekeeper, an A&R man, or a Radio 1 or whatever. So I think it's a great time, right? It's good times in bad times, and I'm not minimising the struggles and the challenges that we've got ahead of us, but I'm really looking forward to it. I think we've got one big job. Assuming that we're healthy and our friends and family and colleagues are healthy, your job is really to manage your psychology in these situations. and to look for positivity. So Biff Byford from Saxon gave me a piece of advice. I was about 40 and he calls me young'un. He says,
he's like 65 though now, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He says, you listen to me, young'un. He says, when you're hot, tour, and when you're not, write songs. And I think what we do now, I'd qualify that bit and I'd say, when you're hot, tour, when you're not, write songs and train. Just upskill. And I don't care if it's a qualification with letters like an MA or a BA, or if it's just you on Udemy learning how to work a new phone or something, or developing your Instagram, whatever it is. The world's going to be kind to musicians who do that, and it's going to be very hard to those who don't want to do it.
I think I'm listening to that, thinking the thing that has underpinned a lot of that story, and it's the reason why the comment from the government about retraining is so disingenuous, is because there's innovation. There's innovation that underpins all this. Our industry has been going through that from the point we were talking about, from that mid-90s point.
Yeah.
And the thing, what there's an acceptance now, and I think it's really, really powerful, that the creator is far closer to the consumer, to the point where that relationship is direct in so many cases now. And that's where the power comes.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you can create something that people are interested in consuming, then there almost aren't any blocks anymore.
There's no blocks at all, and and you can take it a long way. If you look we work with Corey Wong, who's the guitar player from Wolfpack. Started in someone's room on YouTube, and 'cause it's so good, it's just got, obviously those guys play Madison Square Gardens, just before COVID. You can take the DIY ethic to stadium level. It still works, and it's musicians taking responsibility for the business. So it's not like the 60s. It's if you want to, even then though, you paid a high price. If you opted out of the business thing like Jimi Hendrix did, and like Peter Green did, Janis Joplin, someone else is going to do it. And if you look at the two guys from the Experience, Noel and Mitch, didn't earn any money. And largely because at the end of the writing, they didn't sit down and go, hang on a minute, what about the songwriting splits? Where's this going? And I appreciate, it comes naturally to me, but for many people who are better musicians than me, it doesn't, because the art takes up a bigger part of. So for those guys, it's about teaming up with somebody who can help them doing it, but you can't avoid it.
No.
You can't be fatalistic about it.
No, but it's also powerful, and it's self-empowering in a way that actually, if you go back to when Little Angels were around, that opportunity didn't exist at all.
No.
For a band of that size, with all due respect, you couldn't break the mould.
No.
You had to be Uber at that point to break the mould, at which point money's almost immaterial anyway.
Yes.
Whereas now, actually, you were talking before about bands that, like you say, about the 10,000 T-shirts. I mean, I'm a huge Marillion fan, and Marillion have kept a career going. I'm to the point where there's that. I've covered it in a podcast. That whole thing about they virtually invented crowdfunding back in about 98, 99.
I remember it well. Yeah, I remember we did a tour with those guys, and it was just before they did it. And I remember when they did it, that we're going to sod the record company. We don't need them. We'll just raise them. And it was mind-blowing. We take it for granted now, but it really works. It's closely followed by Simply Red, and now there's got to be a bloody good reason to do a record deal.
Well, I think the point is, and the Marillion example is great. You don't need hundreds of thousands of fans.
No.
Like you say, 30,000 fans doing what Marillion did, which is chuck 15 quid in for an album that hadn't been written yet.
Yeah.
On the view that you're going to get a product in a year's time, and you were happy to make that investment because you just wanted another record.
Yeah.
And that's £500,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that allows a band to do what they need to do.
It completely does. And that's what everyone's doing now. But you have a combination of bits of machinery around you, don't you?
Yeah.
And it's always the same. The artist has got to construct a solar system of business structures. And I think of an artist these days as being a kind of a manager as well.
I'm pleased it's your WhatsApp that's going. I thought Jason's never been this popular.
I am not this popular.
The reason for it, these little pings and everything, is I'm really bad with tech. Despite me being very interested in innovation, I can understand things with valves in it and tape reels that go around, but otherwise not so good. So sorry about the ping.
Oh no, it's fine.
Yeah.
I was interested because I've been on. I put myself on some training courses, like you say, sort of like personal development over the last couple of weeks, and it was a company that's called the Do Lectures,
right?
And it's all aimed at small businesses. It's not music based at all. In fact, it's run by a company that make jeans,
right?
Right. And they make jeans in a place that's on the. Basically, if you drive to Wales down the M4 and keep going, just stop before you fall in the sea.
Right.
And they're in a little town down there.
Yeah.
And I emailed them before the course, and I was like, should I? I run an event. Is this going to be relevant? It seems to be quite product led. As in, it's this pen or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, you'll learn a lot from it. And I did genuinely learn a lot for it. But the whole thing was very much like the music industry. So whether it be, I suppose you'd call them craft jeans as opposed to craft beer, but it's still that very handmade, small quantity. And the whole thing they talk about is you actually only need like 1,000 people to love what you do, and you can make a living out of it. Because you can, they do like a yearbook that you can buy. They do the T-shirt, and and they've got a really good motto of do one thing well.
Yeah, like that.
And I love it, and I'm going to sign up for more of their sort of like courses because it really struck a chord with me. That it doesn't actually matter. I will never be the NAMM show. It's physically, but I can be the best guitar show. Yeah. I only need 1,000 people to love it.
Yeah. And cut out all the middlemen.
Yeah.
Because that's what kills it. That's what kills it every time.
This is the extreme, isn't it? A record company might need 500,000 fans or 1 million fans to make a band viable. And in reality, a band might only need 10,000.
Yeah, and even when you've got your million fans on your record label, out that funnel, the drips of the financial drips that come through to the band, you're still going to be scribbling around and skins,
Oh yeah, I mean, that example I talked about the record company needing it, that doesn't help the band out at all, does it?
No, it doesn't. But the dream now, of course, is not to get a record deal, it's to get a record deal and then get dropped. That's the dream. because that's when we have a Matt White, very interesting guitar player who's in the temperance movement. He's just finished RMA and now teaches on the MA, and he did a business plan for his final project on the Masters, which is they're on a fairly traditional record deal with Earache, very successful pairing. Earache have done amazing work on just checking my audio. Earache are doing amazing work with breaking bands, but Matt did a business plan of what would happen if we did a DIY approach, and it was both our chins were on the floor. If you could take that profile, everything you're doing, and then apply the DIY model, that's incredible, very powerful.
Cool. The temperance movement is split, haven't they? Because Paul Sayer did the guitar show a couple of years ago. I mean, I bloody loved them.
And Luke Potashnik, he's a good friend of Luke's an old guitar student from 25 years ago. He was in a band called Rooster.
Oh, I booked them at the NEC for Music Live.
Yeah, well, Dave Neal, now the drummer from Rooster, is one of them. He runs a production company called Wild Stag in Brighton and makes a lot of Water Bear long form videos. So all our graduates over the years are doing all this amazing stuff and living this, exemplifying this portfolio career thing. But that band Temperance Movement are very interesting because they're a rock band, but they come from a session musician background. So they're all playing guitar for people like Guy Chambers on Natalie and Brulé records and stuff like that. And they still do a lot of that stuff. But they said, well, no, we want to have a proper band. They took a few years to find the right singer. And they supported Little Angels in 2012, third on the bill.
Right.
Because I did the demo and I thought, this is great, and we had the chance to do it. We put them on. Within about 6 months, they were headlining Scala or somewhere in London, and Jimmy Page was hanging with them in the dressing room, all powered by Planet Rock, So it was a great thing, and I don't think we've seen the last of them. I think they've had a hiatus, but with all these sort of bands, never say never. I think there'll be another Temperance Movement record, I suspect.
Oh, good. Good, because we were talking about the other day about future guests, and I said we should get Paul Sayer on because the funny thing about Paul is that I don't know if this means anything to you. So the guitar show's at a place called the New Bingley Hall in Birmingham.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'd done, I sorted out the deal with Paul, and he was coming along to. We do a rig rundown with him essentially, but obviously rig rundown's owned by Premier Guitar, so it was a rundown of Paul Sayer's rig. Yeah. And he phoned me up and he went, "Where are you?" And I was like, "I'm stood outside the venue, mate." He said, "But there's no one here." He was at Stafford Bingley Hall, not Birmingham Bingley Hall.
Right, so did it not happen?
No, he arrived with about 3 minutes to spare. We were like chucking his amps on the stage and stuff ready for him. But he was phenomenal. I mean, because of him, I went out and bought a Lazy J amp.
They're great amps. Great amps. And I think also with they get great guitar sounds, and that first album's powered by the Lazy J thing. It's kind of like a Tweedy thing, I mean, I like Marshall and Voxes, which are more compressed and more Class A, aren't they? And the Lazy J is more of a Class B, But I have to do the same. You can't use the old amps anymore; they're too fragile. So I get Plexis and AC30 derivatives made by Cornell.
Ah, right, Dennis.
Yeah, Dennis. Who makes the best plexi, I think, and the reissues of these stuff are always a little bit. They're okay, but they're not like the old ones because they're either not allowed because of health and safety, and B, they're making everything to cost. So it comes back to your point of where do we get our amps from? I'm a lifelong Marshall and Gibson user. I don't buy them anymore. I go for the little boutiquey thing, and I know what I want, and I've got a lawsuit thing from Gibson where I tried to buy a Les Paul. I'm a lifelong user. I've got several, and I like the ones about 1974, and I like the ones about 1978, which have got a maple neck, that John Sykes.
Oh yes,
thing.
I remember.
They're a very different guitar. They're very aggressive, cold sweat kind of thing, And my black Les Paul from the Little Angels era was that 3 pieces of maple in the neck. So this thing with a band split, I didn't really play for 20 years. I was acting more like a tennis coach with younger players, and I didn't have time or the interest in doing it myself. Got rid of all my stuff, gave Chris Leonard my old black Les Paul, which went out on tour with various derivatives of Busted. Gave my Strat to Luke, sold all the rest of it. So then 20 years on, I'm like, I fancy playing. Something happened and I fancied playing. So Mike Ross, who's a great artist in his own right, was running the guitar vintage section in GAC in Brighton, and he gave me a Cornell Plexi. And I'm like, yeah, this is the thing. Because for me, it's all about sound. Sound makes you want to play. I'm like, this has got that plexi, that old Marshall roar of the power amp, And then I just thought, well, I just need a Les Paul. I'll just buy a Les Paul standard. And this was the era where Gibson were turning out not good guitars. And I went to GAC and I went through a line of about 30 of them, every Les Paul in the shop. And the first one I thought, this is right, dog, there's something wrong with it. Anyway, next one. And I was like, this feels more like a sub-Epiphone guitar. These are expensive customs and standards, So I got one made because of my Les Pauls that I'd sort of collected off eBay, and my old black one I'd got back. And that was the reference. That's what a Les Paul is, So I had to get one made, and Ian Allerton, a great builder, made one for me. And he said, what do you want in the headstock? And I said, it's got to have a Gibson logo because I want to pretend to be Brian Robertson in Thin Lizzy. so that, that's what happened. So he put the Gibson logo on at my request, and I stuck it on Facebook. About 3 weeks later, he gets this cease and desist notice from Gibson and this massive threat of him being sued. It really annoyed me because he's a guitar builder. He spends 90% of his time fixing neck breaks on Gibson guitars that Gibson cannot be asked to fix. If you break your SG behind you, you send it to Gibson. They're not interested, man. So he's just a guy making, and it's okay. My fault for putting a Gibson logo on it, but I was really angry, but he didn't want to pursue it, so I stuck a bit of bloody gaffer tape on the Gibson logo, and eventually they kind of calmed down and backed off. So I'm so glad that Gibson have had this change of culture. You can see that they are now making good guitars again, and there isn't that ridiculous litigious thing.
Well, they were run by a nutter, weren't they? That's the problem.
Yeah, they were.
They were just run by a nutter for however long.
Yeah, and when I grew up, I mean, for me, I love PRS guitars, but it's not me because it's a different generation. I have to have a Strat or a Les Paul, but it's very disappointing when you just can't buy one. And then you try to make one and they try and sue you. Mental.
But yeah, I mean, the Les Pauls and the SG that you can see behind me, none of them are Gibson. The Les Paul Custom is actually an Orville Les Paul Custom.
Oh, great! Yeah, that's a Japanese one. Yeah,
it's the John Sykes model.
Okay.
And then there's a couple of Grecos. I have actually got proper Gibsons, but you can't see those. They're on the bottom rung of the guitar rack, not the top rung.
I think a lot of us buy Grecos. I mean, if you want to, there's still this gold mine of guitars up to about 1983 because the wood's different. It's not farmed wood; it's organic wood. We can't chop down rainforest anymore. So the cells in old wood are very different to farmed wood, which is grown very fast. The cells are bigger, more water in them, which is what accounts for that weird balsa wood feeling you get from new guitars. But if you type MIJ into eBay, you write Les Paul MIJ stands for Made in Japan. You'll still find great guitars from the 70s and 80s. I got an amazing Les Paul Custom, a white one that had yellowed, $2,000. I got that off Facebook. But in Japan, it's changing now, but it's always been culturally a little bit frowned upon to buy second-hand stuff.
Right, is that why we get so many of them over here then?
Yeah, they export them to their guitars to America and Australia and stuff like that. But I've imported loads of Grecos, and you can get a great guitar for hundreds of pounds, not thousands. You pay a little bit of import duty.
Oh, that SG, which is actually nicer than the Gibson SGs that I tried.
Yeah,
I think it cost me something like £340.
Yeah, there you go. And I've bought similar guitars for $3. The Tokai Springy Sound series of Strats can be really good. All that stuff, Silver series, and you sort of work out what you're looking for. We all know about the JV Squire Strats. Now I've got one of them that I got recently for £600. Amazing guitars. eBay spoiled it a bit because it's opened up the Japanese thing, but it's also made everybody find out about this stuff. Because you used to get the Squire, the JV ones, you'd find one for like £200. You'd be like, I know what it is, but you'd have to spend a lot of money on guitars.
But you're right. I think the older they are, the better they sound. I mean, the Les Paul Standard, which is a Greco, I think it's an 82. It's one of the super real ones. Yeah,
that's why it's before 1983 for some reason. It's tend to have the magic.
It's really light. I mean, really light for a Les Paul.
Yeah.
I don't know. I stuck some Monty's pickups in it, and it just sounds amazing.
Yeah,
it's that proper old sound.
It does tend to be the pickups tend to be the weak point. So I've always go to bare knuckle pickups, and those guys are amazing. You ring up and I speak to Ben there or Tim. Tim's a great guitar player as well, and a good songwriter. And if you know what you want, it really makes sense to have a pickup wound up for you. Because for me, I always have tried to make a Plexi sound like an AC30, and an AC30 have a bit more raw, so I ended up with sort of, bouncing between the two amps or trying to make a hybrid or something. And also for me, because of the horn section and 80s PA systems, I'm always looking for more of that kind of mid-range 800k.
As Jason disappears for the second time to answer his front door.
It's all right, but that Brian May thing, that early Brian May kind of off frequency that sits between the hi-hat and the bass drum and gets out the horn section of the keyboards and sounds immense through a PA. Because PAs have a scoop. Guitar players are very bad at thinking about process. They think their job is finished when it comes out the cabs, and it's not. You've got to. This is what the problem with Kempers for me. You can get very close when you're sat tracking, and you kid yourself it's close on the rhythm, not so much the lead for me because it doesn't move harmonically, but it doesn't stand going through a PA system very well for me. It always sounds muffly, and it doesn't stand mixing, mastering. And at the end of the day, when you're sitting in your car and it's on the radio, your guitar sound, your job's not finished until it's good there.
Well, and I guess from your going all the way back then to those gigs, there's a lot of different frequencies going on, or there were a lot of different frequencies going on. So if you're having to, I mean, you get drums, bass, guitar, vocal, in that kind of traditional rock and roll format, relatively easy to see where it all fits together.
Yeah.
You know, the bass guy's in his space and the drummer's in his space and the guitarist actually got quite a lot of space to play with. And what have you. But you take the Little Angels example, you've got a lot more going on because there's keys in there as well.
Yeah, and it starts with the drums. Like your guitar sound is I won't dial up a sound until I hear what the drums are doing. Like, for example, if the hi-hats are loose, like an Alex Van Halen thing, they're going to take them frequencies. So whatever you put in there is going to go. And the bass drum is going to take the bottom end out from under you because they've got more... They'll just dominate it, you know. So that Keith Richards thing of the middle space between the two works unless you're going to have the guitar so raging in the mix, like Steve Vai records. You know, his sound is quite scooped compared to the Brown sound, you know. And he makes it sound amazing because it's clang and it's right up there in the mix, you know. Those early David Lee Roth records are very well mixed because you've got vocal and that kind of thing. But I couldn't do that. I couldn't do a Steve Vai type clang sound. So for me, I hate master volume. The only one I like is a JCM 800 a bit. But otherwise, you've got to get your sound from the back end. There's a lot of difference between with a preamp valve and a power amp valve in terms of harmonic richness. So it's getting those power amp valves to work without the preamp valves being too compressed. So the minute you've got a master volume and they're just flat out, then you don't get the dynamics going to the power amp, so you don't get the Paul Kossoff thing. And you don't get that harmonic kind of, you hit a note and it kind of goes, and it settles, and a fifth will come in, and an octave and a low one, you know. And that's what you don't get with a Kemper. You know, if you play a note, it's a flat. It's like in a hospital when someone's died and the note goes, zzz, you know, because there's no harmonic movement. Because how can it? Because it's based on a kind of sample thing. You'd have to have a million samples, which you'd have to take into account every dynamic and the room, and you know. But yeah, I think with guitar players, it's amazing how few really listen, you know. And I'm not down on Kempers. I think there's a real place for them, for modern guitar players who require that fast response, and people get great sounds out of them. But it's not a replacement for a vintage amp. It's doing a different job, you know. And I always find it surprising how few people aren't listening hard enough.
I just think that the thing with the Kempers or XFX or whatever, they're just really convenient, aren't they? You know, I mean, most of the guitarists that I know that you would call, I don't know, gigging amateurs because they play in covers bands and stuff like that. They've just got to cover, you know, they want to be relatively accurate to whatever they're playing. I mean, the truth of the matter is the audience is pissed and they don't care. It's only guitar players that care.
I don't agree with that, because I think people respond to attention to detail on different levels. So they might not be aware of... It's the totality of the detail, isn't it? And I come from an era where, because there was so much money at stake, you took detail very, very seriously. And, you know, it's still AC/DC, an immensely popular band, and their back catalogue is immensely popular with people who don't know anything about guitars, but they respond to the emotion. And you know, you wouldn't want to go back and record TNT with a Kemper.
No.
You really, there's different. And I think a Kemper is a very powerful tool for a modern guitarist who uses it at its best. And XFX can be. I think that XFX sounds better through a PA. I've heard some very convincing sounds from them. But you're using it as a different tool. But if you're saying, you know, Keith Richards would be fine with it. He doesn't need to take out his matchless. He can or whatever he's using. He can use an XFX. Well, it's a different thing doing a different job. However, I did hear the other day that Mark Knopfler is spending an awful lot of time seeing what he can get out of a Kemper, and you know, he's got a lot of taste with his sound. So let's see what he comes up with. You know, but it's different. You know, and back to your point, I think attention to detail and respect for attention to detail is more important now than it ever was, because that's how you differentiate yourself between all these millions of bands out there. You're going to get through because you're better, because you take care of stuff like this.
I still maintain, though, as you know, I've been to watch my mate's cover band several times, and it's just full of pissed 40-year-old women that that want to sing along to Stereophonics.
Yeah, but that's a different thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not craft and it's not art. I don't know what it is.
Commerce.
Yeah, that is, and there's a place for that, and that's good. But you've got to be careful as a musician if you're in that world that you don't let your standards drop. Now, if you need to be in with an MD and a band that really you're scared of every day. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. If you're the best musician in the room, you're in the wrong room. You need people who are going to push you a little bit. And I think more than ever before, you will stand out by being good. Look at Corey Wong. I saw a little video of him the other day. His right hand was just ridiculous. And Wolfpack, it's because it's amazing. Now, you might be amazing in a different area. It might be all about your lyrics and your subject matter. But
that's very kind of you. Thank you.
This is the issue with musicians. It's too easy to make it all look good on Facebook and Instagram. And there isn't a gatekeeper, there isn't an A&R man going, you haven't got a single. And that was a cliche. It's in a Tom Petty line, isn't it? The A&R man says you don't have a single.
Yes, it is.
But we need a bit of that. Because
into the great wide open.
That's it. Young musicians, the smart ones get it, and they're the ones that will get through. Well,
I think that we're pretty much at the end, and I know that Ant's got to go in a minute. So
yeah, sure.
Given that you mentioned Alex and his saggy snare sound,
yeah,
I just wanted to finish because obviously Eddie passing recently, that you actually toured with Van Halen, didn't you?
Yeah, it was quite a long tour. It was the first time they'd been to Europe for at least 10 years. It was Sammy Hagar, so it was OU812 kind of era. And it was an amazing thing, because Eddie was a big influence on me, and the sound again, the Brown sound and all the rest of it, and the freedom in his playing, and he's a god. He's a god. He's like the next in line after Jimmy, really, for defining, and also defined culturally. That whole Stadium Rock was powered by Van Halen, and suddenly he plays keyboards and he comes up with Jump. And he's always moving ahead with his guitar sounds, and the 5150 is still a very important classic amp, which has spawned stuff like the Victory Kraken, it's derivatives of all that stuff. So an amazing person, but complex, and his lifestyle was very hard on himself in them days. It was like it made Motley Crue look like Richard and Judy, that tour. And we were young, so we were fine with it, and most of Van Halen were very sober. You couldn't get near Alex because he was drinking carrot juice and raw garlic.
Oh.
So they're on this. And also Alex is quite deaf, so you had to try and shout at him from about 20 yards because you couldn't get this force field of garlic. And then he'd be like, "What?" So, but Eddie wanted to hang and wanted to party a lot, but I don't think he was playing that great in that era. He had two 5150s going. One had a load of chorus on it, so all that beautiful kind of detail and nuance was. And the sound man wasn't listening, because often the chorusy amp would be too loud, and if the dry one was up one night, it would be a lot better gig than just the chorus one, And they were just coming out the end of this sort of hair era, same as us, and trying to find a place in it. So. But the thing that surprised me was they put the set list together in a very haphazard way. So a lot of time they wouldn't play the hits. They played Jump and stuff like that, but they'd do the set list on the fly, sometimes even during the gig. But it was very inconsistent. So it was a real ride and a real part of the Van Halen. I think they really picked themselves back up again later and made some amazing records. But it wasn't what you'd think it'd be. So very big time, very sort of that Motley Crue kind of thing. And a lot of camaraderie. I mean, he's always giving people guitars and, kind of stuff. But you came away thinking, I don't want to be like that. I'm going to take the good bits. But you definitely felt it was the end of the hedonistic era. And young people these days, we tend to sort of, in the past you read The Dirt by Motley Crue, and I remember a lot of those stories from back in the day, and you're like, that's funny, it's quite... And actually young people just think it's old men being, and women being embarrassing. Hedonism isn't considered cool anymore.
No, I know. I find that
silly,
with the students now.
It's just silly, yeah.
They're just a lot more serious
yeah.
Than we were.
Yeah.
and it's neither better or worse. It's just different.
It's safer for your health. It's a difficult thing. This, how you access your art. How you get that inspiration. And the thing about drink and drugs and all the rest of it, they work for a bit, but they don't work for very long.
There's a brilliant article in Rolling Stone about Eddie Van Halen.
Right.
I'll send you the link, and it talks about how they were the party band.
Yeah.
But Eddie was the one that couldn't stop the partying, and Alex actually had stopped partying, and and it's just that. It's
smoking. He was smoking. Yeah. Part of the act was the smoke rings, and there's a beer in his hand at 10 in the morning and stuff. And Eddie was having a hard time a little bit commercially because it was MTV, and we had a track on MTV. But it's also that it was coincided that tour with Lenny Kravitz's big hit "Are You Gonna Go My Way," and Eddie hated it. He was like, "Why is he on MTV with that stupid little riff?" And he had something that was a little bit more meaty, and he thought he should be on MTV. And it's like, and I remember thinking, dude, I think that Kravitz tune and the video is genius.
Yeah.
So
I went to see Kravitz on that tour. He was brilliant.
Well,
yeah, and I think Eddie was finding. We all go through this as musicians, so we're going through it now. Where's my place in the world?
I was just
so
about to say
through that on that tour.
I was just about to say, because that video, particularly, that just looked different. It looked ahead. It looked new. It looked fresh. And you're just talking about the fact that the hair metal thing was clearly looking tired at that point.
Yeah,
and there's the reason that Kravitz got into that space.
Yes,
because it was new and it was fresh and it was interesting. And I think the other thing about going back to you talking about the kids and looking back at that hedonism, we're back to where we started. We grew up and you wanted to get out of the place that you were in.
Yeah, you
needed an escape, and that escape route was often, it was something that didn't exist. The kids, with all due respect, it's not the same. The world isn't as grey as it used to be. The world isn't as, the routes out and the routes for self-empowerment are so much greater than they used to be. So you can understand why when you got the chance to break out, you went a little bit wild.
Yeah,
I mean, we all did it to a certain extent. Yeah. I mean, I was the first one in my family to go to university and absolutely, did exactly what you should do at university, which I came the arse out of it, and then worked out about how I was going to educate myself later on.
Yeah, and I look back and very thankful that we learned all that stuff in a transit van, through that era. But I don't think it would be great for it to come back.
No.
As I say, it's back there, and we need to be looking ahead.
Yeah. I think that's a good point to wrap it up, don't you, man?
Yeah,
I think it's a fantastic point. Bruce, that's been an absolute treat.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic conversation.
Thank you for doing it.
Yeah, it's been really good fun. I hope I haven't whiffled on too much, and you can get an edit out of that.
And that was Bruce Dickinson, and I thought that was a great interview. Thought both parts were superb. Didn't expect to get 2 parts out of it, but as he said himself, he did whiffle on a bit, and but what a fascinating conversation. And I think we'll end up speaking to Bruce again. In fact, I'm hoping you might get involved in something for the show. Actually,
yeah. I mean, I've known Bruce for I said known. We met about 20 years ago when I think BIM launched, and he came to Music Live, and I tried to get BIM to do Music Live for a couple of years, and he kept saying, I've got too many students, I don't need to advertise for any more. But as it grew, they ended up doing the show. And then a couple of years ago, we were talking about... because I think he curated the stage at Rambling Man Fair, or one of the stages, not the headline stage, the second stage at Rambling Man Fair. And we were talking about trying to do a bit of a warm-up for some of those acts on the guitar show sort of stage. But unfortunately, the timings didn't really fit. So we've had on and off conversations over the years. I've always found him utterly fascinating. But when I think back now, that it was 20 years ago we were talking, he couldn't have been long out of Little Angels at that point.
No, that must have broken up. It's got to be, 92, 93, I would have thought, probably a bit later.
So we'd have started talking about 2000, 2001, something
Yeah,
like
so it's
that.
not that far after. And Blow came after that, so yeah, sounds about right. We haven't said hello to Craig in Canada
Hello, Craig.
for a
Thanks
while.
for
have we?
listening, mate.
We didn't mention him last time, so
No, I don't think so.
no. So hi, Craig. How are you? Hope you're well. But you were telling me that we think we've got another Canadian listener.
We have, according to the analytics, we've got another Canadian listener.
Right. We don't think that's Craig playing with us then. He's not downloading.
He's downloading onto his phone, onto his laptop.
Yeah. He's doing multiple downloads just so we do with. Well, I suppose if you're the other Canadian listener, that prompts two questions, or one question, one request. The request is, can you get in touch and say hello if you're listening in Canada and you're not Craig? Though Craig's always welcome to get in touch as well, because we love hearing from you, Craig. But also, when we find that information out, I want to know if Craig knows the other listener.
And does that other listener know Keith Scott?
Or is that other listener Keith Scott?
Oh, it could well be.
Oh, we might.
Oh, and Craig got the competition question right. Craig, if you're listening, send me your address. I'll send you over a mug or a T-shirt. Let me know what you want.
All the way to Canada?
Well, I'm that kind of generous soul. I mean, it'll probably get there in about April. But yes, I will send it.
I've got somebody who follows me on Patreon, who is called Jeff, who's a lovely fella, and Jeff offered to send me some hair gel from because there's a hair gel I like to use that I can't get over here. I normally buy it when I go over to Nam. Normally buy 2 or 3 things and it keeps going through the year, and I've run out because I didn't go to Nam last year. And he's sent me some of this Tresemme hair gel over that you get from Walmart. It's not expensive. It's just nice. Just I've never found one that was as nice as that one. And apparently, because I'm tracking the package, it's stuck in Canada. So Craig, if you could actually free up my hair gel, I don't know if you work in Canadian Customs, but if you could free up my hair gel, that'd be most appreciated.
Amazing. I've ordered some new glasses from the States, and they've been at San Bernardino Bernardino Airport now for 3 weeks. I've no idea.
Self-isolating.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Right. Somebody suggested, because I put something on my podcast about the fact that we're in the middle of Elf on the Shelf and it's an absolute ball ache, and somebody suggested that you just make your elf have to self-isolate, and that gets rid of 14 days.
What is it today? It's the 5th today, isn't it, that we're recording this? So yeah, it's the 19th. You've only got a few days left to go then, haven't you?
Oh no, it's a faff. We've also got news, haven't we? We've got, as we wrap up, we've got news about a sponsor.
We have, yeah. Focusrite are going to be sponsoring the podcast,
which is fun.
It's amazing.
It is. Thank you to the lovely guys at Focusrite. Even though they haven't paid for this episode, we'll let them have this as a bit of a freebie, shall we?
Yeah. Just chuck it in. So yeah, it starts in January. So
you're going to be getting bits of. It's not going to be corporate though, is it? We can't do corporate, can we?
No. I have warned them it's not to be corporate at all. I don't really care that they've got a new product out that can do this or can do that or is better than the competition. You know, it's just about a product that works within the guitar community.
Yes.
If you want to get your guitar plugged into your computer, the Scarlett 2i2 is the default product.
I thought we said we weren't doing corporate.
Right, that was it. I'm no more corporate other than that. Okay. They're red and they're lovely.
We will be bringing you news from Focusrite at points in time when it's relevant. And thank you very much, Focusrite, for offering to putting the hand in the pocket and throwing a few quid to keep this thing spinning, which is great. So we will bring you some news, and we are very thankful to them, but we will probably take the piss a little as well.
Yes, we will.
I would have thought. Right, so what you got planned for the weekend then? Anything exciting?
No, I did an online open day today. That's always exciting.
Right.
It's horrible because you do it as a webinar, so you can't see anyone. they can just see you. And tomorrow, that means that because I've been working all day today, it's housework tomorrow.
Oh, I'm sorry, mate. I'm sorry.
How about you?
Well, I've got to drop these bits of audio into these podcasts and get those edited up and ready to go because the first episode will need to be ready for, because we're in the 5th of December, so we need to get the first one of Bruce. That'll be on Monday, which is the 7th.
Yep.
And then this bit you're hearing now will be on the 21st of December. So actually, in reality, we should be wishing people a Merry Christmas. We
should indeed. So it's Merry Christmas. And let's hope that 2021 is a considerably better year.
Yes. All I would wish you is a safe and peaceful Christmas, and the same, to be fair, for 2021. Hopefully, and thank you for the support. Thanks for listening, because we've been going a while now.
I mean, it has, and thanks for listening, because without a guitar show to do. This I'd have gone mad if we hadn't have had this. So, yes, thank you.
Cool. Well, Merry Christmas to you as well, my friend.
And you.
And I will see you in officialness in 2021. We'll probably talk before then, but I mean, from this perspective, it'll be next year when we do this again.
Yes, although we've already recorded it.
Oh, don't mess with my head. I'm struggling as it is. I'm not a drink yet. I'm on tea. It's 10 to 6 on a Saturday night and I'm on tea. I need to get a glass of wine in me. All right, fella, you take care.
And you, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to 9 to 42, the podcast from the team at the Guitar Show UK. If you've enjoyed the show, then please remember to hit the subscribe button and share with other like-minded souls. For more information about 9 to 42, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram at the Guitar Show UK. This has been an A Short Stories production.